My name is Michelle Barber, 23 years old. If someone had asked me a year ago where I'd be living at 23, I never would have answered, still at my mom's house. But life rarely follows neat little plans. Staying home actually made sense. I wasn't living there for free. Every month I paid rent, covered the electricity bill, and even handled my mother's phone bill. It wasn't glamorous, but it allowed me to invest almost everything else into building my freelance content creation business. My bedroom wasn't just where I slept. It was my studio, my office, and the place where I believed my future was quietly taking shape. I'd spent over $3,000 on cameras, lights, microphones, editing equipment, and acoustic panels. Every paycheck, every late-night project, every sacrifice was sitting inside those four walls. My boyfriend Ryan used to joke that I loved my camera more than I loved him. I'd laugh and remind him that one day those cameras would help pay for the life we both dreamed about. At the time, I believed the hardest part of my journey would be finding clients. I had no idea the real battle would begin inside my own home. For a while, everything worked. Then my mother's best friend, Melissa Carter, arrived with her 2 children. She was separating from her husband after what my mother described as a miserable relationship. I genuinely felt sorry for her. No one deserves to face something like that alone. When Mom asked if they could stay with us, just for a little while, I didn't object. The guest room wasn't large, but it was enough for Melissa and the kids until they found somewhere else. The children were loud. They raced through the hallway, argued over cartoons, and somehow managed to slam every door in the house. It wasn't peaceful anymore, but I kept reminding myself they were going through a difficult time. I put on headphones, shut my bedroom door, and focused on work. Ryan even offered to let me work from his apartment whenever things became overwhelming, but I refused. I kept telling him everything would settle down soon. I honestly believed it would only last a few weeks. Then one afternoon, I came home carrying groceries and immediately felt something was wrong. My bedroom door was standing wide open. Children were laughing inside. A strange feeling settled in my stomach before I even reached the doorway. When I stepped inside, I froze. Stuffed animals covered my bed. Plastic toys were scattered across the floor. One of Melissa's children was clicking through folders on my computer, while the younger one spun happily around in my office chair. My expensive microphone had been shoved against the wall. My lighting stands leaned dangerously in the corner. My camera bag sat underneath a pile of coloring books. My editing notebooks had crayon marks across their covers. For several seconds, I simply stared. It felt like I had walked into someone else's house. What is going on? The words burst out before I could stop them. Both children looked up. A moment later, my mother hurried upstairs. Instead of looking embarrassed, she looked irritated. "Michelle," she sighed, "lower your voice. You're scaring the kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why are they in my room? She folded her arm as if the answer should have been obvious. They needed more space. Your room is the biggest. I laughed once, more out of disbelief than amusement. My room? The room I pay rent for? It's only temporary. I slowly looked around. My equipment has been thrown into a corner. Melissa appeared behind my mother carrying a mug of coffee. "The kids absolutely love this room," she said with a smile. "They finally have somewhere fun to play." Play. That single word made my pulse quicken. "This isn't a playroom," I answered carefully. "It's my workplace." Mom waved toward my cameras. "You can move that stuff around later." That stuff is how I earn money. Neither woman seemed remotely concerned. I walked over to my desk and carefully picked up my camera body, checking every dial and every lens. "What happens if something gets damaged?" "They're just children," Mom replied. "Exactly." Melissa gave an exaggerated shrug. "They're curious. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, they'd leave your things alone." I slowly turned toward her. "You're calling me uptight because I don't want children playing with over $3,000 worth of equipment?" "They're not monsters." "No, I replied quietly. They're children. Children accidentally break expensive things every day. The room fell silent. I don't want anyone touching my equipment. Melissa rolled her eyes dramatically. There you go again. Mom nodded beside her. You're being selfish. That word hit harder than I expected. Selfish. I'd been helping pay the bills, helping keep electricity running, paying my mother's phone bill every month without complaint. Yet somehow asking for access to the bedroom I paid for made me the selfish one. The conversation went nowhere. The next morning I tried again. This time I approached my mother calmly while Melissa took the children to the park. Mom, I said quietly, can we talk? She barely looked up from her coffee. If this is about the room again, I've already made my decision. I just want you to understand something. She sighed dramatically. My studio isn't just furniture. Without it, I can't work. Every missed deadline costs me money. You can work somewhere else. I've tried. Coffee shops exist. I edit videos. I record voiceovers. Clients pay me for professional quality. She shrugged. You'll manage. I stared at her. I'm paying rent. So doesn't that mean I should at least have access to the room I'm paying for? She leaned back in her chair. It's me house. I decide what happens in it. Those words landed like a slap. If it's your house, I asked carefully, why am I paying rent? Because you're an adult. And adults usually aren't locked out of the rooms they're paying for. She ignored that completely. The kids need more space. I looked toward my younger brother's room. He was 15. My younger sister was 15 too. Both still had their own bedrooms untouched. They could stay with one of my siblings. They're too young. The guest room? Too cramped. My studio could go in there? No. Every solution I suggested was rejected before she even considered it. Finally, I asked the question neither of them wanted to answer. If something breaks, who's replacing it? Melissa walked in just then and answered before Mom could. Nothing's going to happen. That's not what I asked. They're careful. They're children. She smiled dismissively. Stop worrying so much. Days passed. Each one felt longer than the last. Without my proper setup, my work slowed dramatically. I spent hours in noisy cafes trying to edit projects while wearing headphones that barely blocked the sound. One client delayed a contract because I couldn't deliver on time. Another asked whether I was becoming unreliable. Every message tightened the knot already sitting in my chest. One evening, I quietly walked upstairs hoping to grab my headphones. Before I reached the doorway, Mom stopped me. The kids are sleeping. I just need my headphones. You'll wake them. I blinked. So I'm not allowed in my own room? It's their space while they're staying here. Their space, not mine. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs for a glass of water. Voices drifted from the kitchen. Melissa was laughing. I swear, she said, Michelle acts like she's the victim in all this. Mom laughed with her. She's always been stubborn. Melissa chuckled. She'll get over it. My mother answered without hesitation. She always does. I stood there in the dark hallway, completely still. Neither of them realized I could hear every word. And in that quiet moment, listening to my own mother dismiss me so casually, something inside me finally broke. I realized this had stopped being about a bedroom days ago. It wasn't even about my studio anymore. It was about discovering that the daughter helping keep the household afloat mattered less than keeping her best friend comfortable. For the first time in my life, the house I'd grown up in no longer felt like home. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of cartoons blasting from behind my own bedroom door. For a few seconds, I forgot everything that had happened. Then I heard Melissa's youngest child laugh, and it all came rushing back. My room, my studio, my equipment, my mother saying, "It's their space now." I sat on the couch where I'd been sleeping with a blanket pulled around my shoulders. staring at the ceiling like it might give me an answer. My back hurt. My phone was full of unread client messages. Ryan had texted 3 times asking if I was okay, but I didn't know how to explain that I was living in my own house like an unwanted guest. Around noon, I found Mom in the kitchen making lunch. "We need to talk," I said. She didn't turn around. "If this is about the room, Michelle, I'm not doing this again." "It is about the room." She slammed a cabinet harder than necessary. "Then my answer hasn't changed." I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm not asking you to throw Melissa out. I'm asking for basic respect. I pay rent here. I pay the electricity bill. I pay your phone bill. That room is where I work." Mom finally faced me, tired and annoyed. "Melissa is going through a divorce." "I understand that." "Then act like it." The words stung, but I kept going. "She and the kids can stay in the guest room again. Or we can move my studio into the guest room and they can keep using my bedroom until she finds a place. Or everyone can rotate rooms so I'm not the only one giving up everything." Mom shook her head before I even finished. "No." "Why?" "Because the guest room is too small for all your stuff. Your brother and sister are too young to be inconvenienced, and Melissa already has enough stress." I stared at her. "So I don't?" "You're an adult." That had become her answer for everything. Adult meant pay bills. Adult meant sacrifice. Adult meant stay quiet while everyone else got protected. I leaned both hands on the counter. "Then treat me like one. Adults don't pay rent for rooms they aren't allowed to enter." Her eyes narrowed. "This is my house." There it was again. My house, my rules, my decision. I felt something cold settle in my chest. "If it's your house and I don't get a say," I said slowly, "then maybe I shouldn't be paying anything." Her expression changed instantly. "Don't you dare start that." "Why not?" "Because I need your help with the bills." "Then you need to treat me like I matter." For the first time, she didn't have a quick answer, so I gave her one. "Either Melissa and the kids move out of my room, or I move out of the house." Mom blinked. Then she laughed. It wasn't loud. It was worse. Small, sharp, insulting. "Don't be ridiculous. Where would you even go?" "I've already started looking." "You can't afford to live on your own?" I looked straight at her. "Try me." For the next few days, the ultimatum sat between us like smoke after a fire. Mom didn't mention it again because she didn't believe me. Melissa definitely didn't believe me. Once, when I went upstairs to grab a charger from a box that had been shoved into the hallway, she leaned against the doorway and smirked. Still pouting? I didn't answer. She folded her arms. "You know, running away won't make you less selfish." I looked past her at my room. The bedspread was gone, replaced by a cartoon blanket. My desk had stickers on it. One of my light stands was lying sideways near the closet. I felt my hands curl into fists. "I'm not running away," I said. "I'm leaving a place where I'm not respected." Melissa scoffed. "Good luck paying real rent." That night, I sat in a coffee shop until closing, scrolling through rental listings while rain streaked the windows beside me. Most places were too expensive. Some looked unsafe. A few were so small I wasn't sure my bed would fit, let alone my studio equipment. But I kept searching. I cut every unnecessary subscription. I calculated food, utilities, transportation, emergency savings. Ryan offered again to let me stay with him, but I told him no. I loved him, but I needed this decision to be mine. I wasn't leaving one house where I had no control just to become dependent on someone else. 3 days later, I found it. A small room in an older building 20 minutes away. The paint was faded. The hallway smelled faintly like old wood and laundry detergent. The window faced a brick wall, but it had a lock. It had quiet. And most importantly, it had space in the corner for my desk, lights, microphone, and camera. The landlord was a soft-spoken woman named Mrs. Alvarez. She listened while I explained that I worked from home and needed a stable internet connection. She nodded, showed me the breaker box, pointed out the laundry room, and said, "This building is old, but people here mind their business." That was the most beautiful sentence I had heard in weeks. I signed the lease the next afternoon. When I held the keys in my palm, I felt relief first, then grief. Because moving out should have felt like freedom. Instead, part of me felt like I had been pushed out of my own life. I didn't tell Mom immediately. I packed quietly whenever no one was watching. Clothes first, books, hard drives, backup cables, old notebooks full of ideas I hadn't had time to finish. Then came the studio. That part scared me, because most of it was still trapped inside my old bedroom. The night before the move, I found Mom in the living room watching television. "Mom!" She muted the TV but didn't look at me. "What now?" "I'm moving out tomorrow." Her head snapped toward me. For 1 second, I saw genuine shock. Then anger replaced it. "You're actually doing this?" "Yes." "Over a room?" I swallowed. "No, over disrespect." She stood up. "Michelle, stop being dramatic. This situation is temporary." "You've been saying that for weeks." "Melissa has nowhere else to go. And I had nowhere to work." "You're young. You can adapt." "I did adapt. I'm leaving." Her face hardened. "You know I need your rent money." There it was. Not "I'll miss you." Not "let's fix this." Not "I'm sorry." Just money. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Then ask Melissa to help." "She can't." "Then ask her husband." "That's cruel." "No," I said quietly. Cruel was taking my room, locking me out of it, letting her kids touch my work equipment, and still expecting me to be like nothing happened. Mom's lips tightened. "So you're abandoning your family?" I shook my head. "I'm choosing myself because nobody else here did." She looked at me like she barely recognized me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the version of me she knew was the one who always gave in. The one who paid quietly. The one who swallowed hurt because peace was easier. That Michelle was gone. The next morning, Ryan arrived with 2 of my friends in a rented van. One friend, Clara, held up her phone. "Recording?" I nodded. Just in case. When we walked into the house, Melissa was sitting at the kitchen table in her robe, drinking coffee like she owned the place. Her eyes moved from me to the boxes in Ryan's arms. "Seriously?" "I'm moving out," I said. She laughed under her breath. "That's pathetic." I didn't stop. I went upstairs. My hand trembled when I opened the bedroom door. The room smelled like crayons and spilled juice. Toys covered the floor. My microphone cable was twisted around a plastic dinosaur. My camera bag was still shoved in the corner. For a moment, all I could do was stand there and remember what the room used to be. Then, Clara lifted her phone and began recording. I stepped inside and started packing. Melissa appeared within seconds. "You can't just barge in here." I didn't look at her. "It's my property. This is the kids' room now." "No," I said, carefully wrapping my microphone in foam. "It's the room I paid for until you took it." She raised her voice. "You're throwing a tantrum." Ryan stepped closer, calm but firm. "She's taking her things. That's all." Melissa glared at him. "This has nothing to do with you." He didn't flinch. "It does when someone I love is being treated like she doesn't matter." For the first time, Melissa went quiet. We packed fast. Camera, lights, tripod, hard drives, desk chair. Every piece felt like I was taking back a part of myself. Mom came upstairs just as Ryan carried the last box out. She looked around the nearly empty room, and her face twisted. "So, that's it?" she said. "You're really leaving us high and dry?" I turned to her. "No, Mom. You left me with no place here." her eyes filled with anger, not sadness. After everything I've done for you? I nodded slowly. And after everything I paid for, you still decided it didn't deserve respect. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. Don't. I've made my decision. As I walked down the stairs for the last time, Melissa muttered behind me, "You'll come crawling back." I paused at the front door. For a second, I almost turned around. Then I remembered the kitchen laughter, the locked door, my mother asking about rent before asking if I was okay. I stepped outside into the cold morning air and didn't look back. The drive to my new apartment was strangely quiet. Ryan followed behind the moving van while Clara and Ethan joked about how many stairs we still had to climb. Their voices faded into the background. I kept looking through the passenger side window, watching my old neighborhood disappear one street at a time. I expected to cry. Instead, I felt lighter with every mile. By sunset, my tiny apartment was full of boxes. The walls needed fresh paint. The kitchen was barely big enough for one person. The bathroom sink leaked if I turned the faucet too far. But when I locked the door that first night, I realized something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. The next morning, I unpacked my studio before anything else. Camera, microphone, lights, editing computer. When I switched everything on and saw every piece working perfectly, I actually smiled. It wasn't the biggest victory in the world, but after everything that had happened, it felt enormous. That peace lasted less than 24 hours. My phone buzzed. "Mom, have you paid this month's rent yet?" I stared at the message. I had already moved out. I wasn't living there anymore. Still, she was asking for money. Me. "No, I moved out yesterday." Her reply came almost instantly. "The month isn't over. You still owe me." I rubbed my forehead. "I'm not paying rent for a house I no longer live in." 3 dots appeared. Then another message. "Kelly doesn't have money. I can't cover everything without your help." I read it twice. Not once did she ask if I'd settled in. Not once did she ask if I was safe. Only whether I was still paying. I answered as calmly as I could. "You told me it was your house and your rules. That also means they're your bills." For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then my phone exploded. Selfish, ungrateful, immature. She accused me of abandoning the family when they needed me most. She claimed I was punishing everyone because I hadn't gotten my way. At first, guilt crept in. I'd helped with those bills for years. I knew exactly how much my rent contributed to the household. Part of me wondered if I should send one last payment just to keep the peace. Then I remembered standing outside my own bedroom while someone else told me I needed permission to enter it. The guilt disappeared. I never sent the money. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my business. Without constant interruptions, my deadlines improved almost immediately. Clients who had started drifting away returned after I explained there had been a housing issue. Within 2 weeks, I was earning normally again. Ryan came over one evening carrying takeout. He looked around my apartment and smiled. "You know," he said, "it's small." "I know." "The couch is terrible." "I know." "The neighbors are noisy." "I know." He took my hand. "But you finally look happy." I looked around the room. For the first time in a long time, he was right. A week later, my younger sister called. I hadn't heard much from her since moving out. "Hey." "Hey," she answered quietly. There was an awkward silence. Finally, she sighed. "Mom's really stressed." I figured. "She's behind on bills." I stayed quiet. "She says if you just paid rent this month, things wouldn't be so bad." I closed my eyes. "I'm not living there." "I know. But she keeps saying you abandoned us." I took a slow breath. "Did she tell you she gave my room away?" "Yes." "Did she tell you she locked me out?" Silence. "Did she tell you Melissa said it wasn't my room anymore?" Another silence. I was paying for that room, I continued. I wasn't asking for special treatment. I was asking for basic respect. I know, my sister whispered. I wanted to help Mom. I really did. But helping someone shouldn't require giving up your dignity. She didn't argue. I just hate seeing everyone fighting. So do I. After another minute, we changed the subject to school before ending the call. I could tell she understood more than she was willing to admit. A few days later, something happened that made me realize my mother still wasn't finished. My cousin texted me. "Are you okay?" I frowned. "Why?" A screenshot appeared. It was a Facebook post written by my mother. According to her, I had selfishly abandoned my family during one of the hardest periods of their lives. She wrote about taking in a struggling single mother. She wrote about sacrifice. She wrote about financial hardship. She wrote about disappointment. One thing she didn't write, that she had taken the bedroom I was paying rent for, that she had allowed someone else to use my work equipment, that she had locked me out of my own space. Hundreds of people had already reacted. Several relatives commented about how children today were selfish. Others praised my mother for her generosity. For a few minutes, I seriously considered writing my side of the story. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I stopped. The people who truly knew me already knew the truth. The people who believed her without asking for my side probably wouldn't believe me anyway. I closed Facebook without typing a single word. Silence felt stronger than another public argument. Over the next month, life slowly found its rhythm again. Work picked up. My apartment began feeling like home. Ryan helped me hang shelves for my camera gear. I bought a second desk. I even adopted a small plant that somehow survived despite my terrible watering schedule. Mom still texted occasionally. Sometimes she asked practical questions. Sometimes she acted as if nothing had happened. Sometimes she hinted that I should come home and talk. I kept every conversation polite, short, carefully distant. One evening, she finally sent the message I never expected. "I miss you." I stared at those words for a long time. A younger version of me would have rushed home immediately. This version knew better. Missing me wasn't the same as respecting me. I replied simply, "I hope you're doing well." Nothing more. Because boundaries aren't built through angry speeches. They're built through consistency. Looking back now, I don't regret moving out. I regret that it became necessary. I never wanted to choose between my family and my self-respect. But my mother made that choice long before I packed a single box. She chose convenience over fairness. She chose her friend over her daughter. She chose my rent money over my voice. Leaving wasn't the hardest part. Accepting that my own mother had stopped seeing me as someone whose feelings mattered, that was the part that truly hurt. Today, my apartment is still small. The paint still needs touching up. The bathroom sink still leaks. But every morning, I walk into my little studio, switch on my camera, and remember something that no one can ever take away from me again. Respect starts with the person in the mirror. The day I walked out of that house, I didn't lose my home. I finally found myself.